Welcome to Bold Conscious Connections. My name is Raju Panjwani and I'm a certified leadership coach.
And I'm Triccia Ramos, a certified high performance coach. Together, we help business leaders redefine success on their terms to create more space and energy so that they live impactful lives.
Everyone wants to be seen, heard, and understood. So, at a deeper level, we know that the collective consciousness is important to raise in this world, and leaders who are influencers can make that difference. We, in our coaching programs, teach people how to focus on the interconnectedness, heart-centeredness, and growth from within. And this is what this podcast will be about.
So stay tuned and subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts.
Talk to you very soon. Hey, welcome to our Bold Conscious Connections podcast. We're so excited here to talk about something really different today.
Yes, this episode is really something that is coming out of the fact that you and I have been doing some work around healing old wounds and acknowledging generational traumas. So we thought, you know what? This is not a conversation that you're used to having or hearing, and we thought it'd be a great one to actually have today.
I mean, probably many of you listening to this must hold on to beliefs that don't serve you. We all do, and God, have I had many that I still hold on to. And then when something happens, a situation occurs, or you meet somebody in a situation that triggers you, then you realize, if it's happening repeatedly, oh my God, what is it? What is it? And so, as we've discovered, you know, there are some deep blind spots that they're blind for a reason, right? Because we haven't recognized them, and then they translate themselves into some really traumatic situations in life, and it doesn't feel good.
No, and you know, as coaches, of course, we are committed to figuring out how to really empower individuals and teams and groups of people. And one of the things we both got into this year was doing some shadow work, which is, you know, a term Carl Jung used to talk about the unconscious, right? Like those parts of us that are back there so deep, so hidden, and sometimes a lot of times parts of us that we're not really proud of. But nonetheless, they're a part of who we are. And keeping them tucked away, unaddressed, such as inner child wounds or those past conditioning from addressing trauma or dealing with trauma, those really can serve to guide how you view your life. And when we talk about limiting beliefs, we're talking about beyond like the average limiting beliefs. We're talking about, like you said, they're so deep back there. You don't even know they're there because they lurk behind they lurk behind the shadows. And so it does require some deep dive, an inward journey, and it's not for the faint of heart.
So since you went through some of that stuff recently, maybe you want to talk a little bit about, if it's not, well, you know, it's not for the faint of heart, but how do you compare that to, let's say, someone going to therapy for a long time, or counseling of some sort, or hypnosis, or any number of those things that are out there to help you get past something that you're going through at that moment? How is that different, would you say?
Well, they're all different ways to get to help you to recognize, uncover, and acknowledge what you're not aware of, right? Our perspectives have been with us. The way we view the world has been with us for as long as we can remember. And so, you know, it's really hard to recognize when your lens is, perhaps it's an old lens, very scratched up, you need to get rid of it, get a new one, and all of the different things you mentioned are all ways to be able to get to that. Not one is better than the other. It really depends on the individual and what journey they want to take and what the depth of the trauma is. So,
But obviously that permeates for the person to experience something that they're going through today. What is the reason they're going to therapy or counseling or hypnosis or whatever? It's going because there's something that they're unable to easily deal with themselves, right? Because that's the main issue, why they're then seeking some kind of help. So in terms of what you're calling shadow work, how different is that than any of these other sort of forms of, and what does it take?
well, it's the depths. So, yes, you can. Why do people seek help? Why do people seek counseling or therapy or work with coaches? I think there's a recognition that something's not working, that they have ideals that are not matching their day-to-day reality. And it's usually not unless you're willing to go to the depths of that do you uncover those deep-seated wounds that have to be brought to surface to be integrated into your whole existence. And for example, if it is an inner child wound, which all of us have, all of us have it, right? It's just the way it is, right? Like from those ages of 2 to 12, where you're really your understanding of the world is being shaped, and your influence, the people around you, is influencing your beliefs. There's going to be loss of innocence. There's going to be wounds that happen that most people go through life not really realizing that they then end up creating a mindset or a set of beliefs that are a reaction to some of those wounds. And the thing is, as human beings, we have the capacity to grow and evolve and be much more dynamic. We don't have to just stick to this one idea of who we thought we were 20 years ago, 40 years ago, and go through life as just proving that that's who we are. I mean, that's the point of having consciousness, is that inside all of us is an innate desire to evolve and grow and make things better for us than the generations that came before us. So,
and we clearly, as we live life the way we've been conditioned to live, right? So you as a dad or a mom or whatever, we almost identically pass down those things to our children. And I was lucky to have some recognition of that over the last few years, and certainly in 2020, a lot more about how I deal with children and my kids. So it's there is a danger to keep propagating and proliferating this sameness of what gets passed down from maybe a tough dad or some other way of other parenting, or other uncles, or something happened to you as a child, and then you just keep doing that to your kids and then their kids. So I guess there are many ways to then either you can get into complete depression because nothing is working, as you were saying earlier, that if your current scenario doesn't fit what you think you are or want to be or who you want to be, and when there is that gap, it causes this incredible dissatisfaction, and you can go into, if you don't seek the help or you don't reach out for, okay, well, I'm going to work on this type of work, or I'm going to seek some professional help if that's the case, or just help me accelerate out of this particular situation that I'm in. And that's kind of how, but you have to kind of know that there is a gap, and then what do you want to do with it?
Well, I think most people do know, and they are aware, and I think that the depression comes, or that unhappiness, unfulfillment comes when you know deep down in your heart of hearts that you wanted to do better. For example, you brought up children. You know deep down in your heart of hearts that you wanted to do better by your children. But somehow you don't know any other way because that's the only way you saw
Right.
growing up. And so that's why it's so important that as we go through life, we gain experiences. The point of gaining experience is to expand our perspective.
Right.
It's to be able to broaden the viewpoint, right? So that we are then exposed to and can choose from different courses of action versus reverting back to just that one course that we grew up with. And it really, you do have to believe that something different is possible for you to be able to create in order to make the effort, right? I think it starts there. There's got to be a belief that it's possible to actually evolve things and heal and move on.
And a lot of people, sometimes they don't get to that. And that's what sends them into a tailspin. But it's important. I think they know it, but the question is, do they really seek out and figure out where they might be able to get some true help and true support, right? So yeah, and I think 2020 has been a year like that, where a lot of people have been, have had a lot of emotions that they're carrying from the past.
Well, 2020 is an amplifier. So this year, all this year has done is really brought to surface what was already there before, but magnified it.
Yep.
So if you've had a desire to do something different, but you haven't allowed yourself or given yourself permission to step out of that comfort zone, but that desire has been there, 2020 was probably the year that pushed you. If you are someone that if your health was something that you weren't really taking care of and you weren't prioritizing it, and you still really don't believe that a better way of being with your health is possible for you, chances are you probably got yourself in even worse health in 2020 than you did before. So it really was an amplifier, and it to be able to overcome some of those some of that momentum, you had to get aware. You had to get conscious to it.
Right. So I think it's a year of consciousness too, and people need to figure out how and what they're going to move forward to fill their, not only their the desires that they have to move forward, and don't let these traumas and these deep, but potentially deep-rooted issues hold you back. Because we recognize that the later you wait in life to get to address these issues, the longer it takes to get past.
But there's no you know what? There's no I wouldn't even say that. Like, I don't want anyone listening to this feeling like it's too late for me.
Oh, you mean like an age?
No, it's really about there's no wrong time other than to just choose not to acknowledge it. If you know there's something to acknowledge, now is the present moment. Like, this present moment is always the best moment to be able to do some of this work we're talking about. And we're not really saying go back there and think about the past and dredge up old wounds so that you can be bitter and resentful. On the contrary, it's bringing all of those things to light, to acknowledge them, to somewhat practice a sense of gratitude that with all of that led you to where you are today. And for what it's worth, who you are today is sitting at the seat of possibilities. So everything that we've experienced in the past, that all the wounds that needed healing, chances are it's the same healing that we can also extend to somebody else, because we do teach the things we need to learn the most.
And I was thinking, as you were talking about gratitude, the other side of it is, if you're holding on to something or someone that you believe caused the trauma to you, then there is the forgiveness aspect of it, and then the compassion for yourself, which I find the hardest to do. How do you get more compassionate with yourself? I mean, it's a hard concept for me. Maybe you can shed some light on that.
It's really hard. It's been hard for me as well. And compassion really is something that you can only access if you drop into your heart. So in the absence of compassion, you have judgment. Mm-hmm. And when doing this work, it's so easy to slip into judgment, right? For others in the past, for what they contributed to the experience. And the truth is, we really can't change anything about the past at this point. And so to not feel that judgment or to not go towards judgment, it's about tapping into the heart, opening up that allowance for compassion which then makes forgiveness possible, which is necessary for release. And forgiveness doesn't equal it doesn't equal that you're gonna be a doormat or you're gonna it just means that it's an acknowledgement, especially if we're talking about inner child wounds. Truly everybody, all of us included, we do our best. We do our best, and our best was what we the best is it's good enough. And parents are different generations are different ways of thinking, and I think that's why this conversation is so important now, because we are seeing younger people, younger children, young adults coming in with so much more awareness and so much more conscious about this, and they're really interested in knowing what is the thing that is holding them back, and using that, tapping into that to actually propel them forward. And that's, to me, I've been so inspired by some of our clients that are in their 20s that are doing this,
Yes. I thought it was the millennials that began this whole movement, but it's
Carl Jung.
But in terms of, really saying, okay, there is awareness, consciousness that they can do something with. And, the three typical existential questions as to why am I here? What's my purpose? And who do I want to be? I think there's more people asking that question today than I think in my lifetime ever.
Well, I said Carl Jung before because he coined the term shadow work. But the ideas we're talking about are older than time.
Sure, yeah.
That at the end of the day, our own mind is really the biggest obstacle that gets in our way. And our own perception of reality and our beliefs of what is possible for us those are really what we have to contend with. It's not the outside world.
Of course.
It's not it's not the government. It's not, the situation with the pandemic. It's really, that alignment between what's going on with your heart and your mind that will allow somebody to be able to tap into infinite possibilities.
Yep. And this is the only moment we've got, no matter where you are. It's the same moment today. Because if you allow that moment to then take you where you need to go, where you want to go, then that's the only possibility that you have. Because we waste so many of these moments just, living in our past and just repeating everything we've done in the past and just, thinking that something's going to change. Some spirit will come down and change us or give us something different. But the truth is that it's just really up to you. If you're just in the head all the time, then that's an obstacle that you need to figure out how to overcome.
Yes, it's very, I know I said it earlier, it's not for the faint of heart.
Meaning when you're facing that emotion, whatever, because you have this fear that, oh my God, if I go down to that level, I'm going to start getting angry or cry or whatever's going to come out. And we're afraid to do that because
we're afraid to feel
negative emotion. And
think about it. We have been as a society, as a people, as humanity, rewarded for doing, and being busy.
And remaining in
That-
control.
And trying to have this false sense of control. And we're human beings, we're not human doings, right? And so this idea that you're doing so much all the time absolutely serves that part of us that doesn't want to feel, that doesn't want to face some of those wounds. The thing is, unless you feel it, you can't really heal it. Because if you're not willing to feel that there's pain there, you go through life just, if you imagine your heart being caged, if you imagine your heart with walls around it, and the idea that every time you have the option to feel, you choose not to because you decide that you're too busy to do that, or for me, the way I would practice avoidance in the past is I'd get into over exercising, and I've done that many times, or I'd pour into my work and I would be all about that and everybody else. And that's why this idea of allowing yourself to feel the emotions, you actually have to dedicate time for that. Yeah. It actually has to show up on your schedule, on your calendar. It does.
Like everything else.
Like everything else, because otherwise, who's going to tend to you if you don't tend to you?
Yep. So, yes, the importance of dealing with your shadows is super important.
And if you're, I think you made the case with children, but I think with also husband and wives, like life partners, lovers. Man, if you don't do those inner child healing, like if you don't address those traumas, you're going to work that out on your partner. I mean, if you aren't already, if you're listening to this, you probably understand what I'm saying. Whatever it is that we did not resolve, that we watched, whether it's our parents or other role models we had with how they moved through their relationships. So that's the same stuff we're going to bring into ours unless we acknowledge what that was, and then bring and actually think about, okay, what do we want this to be about? Because that was that, and I don't have to relive that. Exactly. I don't have to own my mother's journey or her mother's journey. I can create my own journey. So what does that look like?
I mean, it's part of us. The fact is, my grandmother's or my grandfather's nose is sitting on my face here in physical form, but perhaps. But there's also the non-physical stuff that you've been handed down, right? So there is a lot of that. If you recognize that, forget about the births and rebirths, but even just from a DNA perspective, this has all happened to you, right? So we're all a combination of different parents and their lineage, and it keeps going back. That's why this ancestry has become an important part of the studies that scientists have been doing lately on DNA and genome and all of that stuff. So, but as human beings living today in this moment right now, you're right, and it shows up in interactions. It shows up in little things over dinner.
It shows up in business partnerships.
It shows up in business. Shows up in business partnerships, and
we know that from experience.
Oh God, waking up in the morning and what comes out of your mouth to say to your kids or your partner or your loved one. It's just the sameness of it, and then you realize nothing's going to change if your relationship is going downhill or it's turbulent. Well, those are indications, right? And you feeling unsatisfied or unfulfilled in whatever you do is an indication that you need to do some work. So
yeah, because I think it's so perfect to talk about like that inward journey. It is an inward journey. Healing is an inward journey. We cannot expect somebody else outside of us to come and heal us. That's just really setting up somebody to fail. It's just setting up wrong expectations. I think a lot of people get into relationships because there's something about the partner that, fulfills them.
Right, or fills a need
Or
of some sort.
fills a void.
A void. Yeah.
And really, imagine the power of two whole people coming together as one. That is the essence of 1 + 1 is 3, right? Versus 50% and 50% is...
Right. I fill your need, you fill my need, and therefore we're whole. That is just not how it works.
No. And really, I mean, if you can love all parts of yourself, even the parts of yourself you're not proud of, if you can actually give yourself unconditional love, man, the capacity you have to love others is that much deeper.
Right.
Because you have it for you. It is flowing through you. So for me, that was a motivator to do the work. I realized in my role as a coach, I really wanted to be at my best, at all times, not just when I'm serving my clients, but all times I want to embody my work. I be in integrity. And so when I decided to jump into doing this work over the summer, I read a lot of warnings about let people know that you're doing this, and be kind to yourself and give yourself space and take it slow. And, the high performer in me was just like, I got this. Like, it's just a few prompts, like a few journaling exercises. I got this. And I didn't take seriously the need for space to integrate all of that. And if you're listening to this and you're interested in doing this work, trust me, you want to give people closest to you warning that you're going to be doing this, because I did show up differently. I felt it. I mean, there were just days where I felt heavy. I felt, it's like when you have a wound and it's kind of half healed, but you decide to pick at the scab.
Right.
And next thing you know, it's oozing blood again. That's really kind of a metaphor for what you're doing. You're reaching into the depths of your soul, into your heart, to unravel, some of the things that you really weren't happy with. I wasn't happy with that. I kept throwing stuff on top of it, right?
Yeah.
Like you just keep throwing things on it to hide it, And, it's like when you're sweeping and there's dust bunnies in the corner and you continue to ignore those dust bunnies, next thing you know, there's stuff, insects and finding their way over there, and it just becomes more dense,
right,
and more hard and more matter. And what could have just been open space to allow for flow, now you have this space where stuff is gathering, stuff is getting blocked and clogged. And that's in essence what's going on, because when you have unresolved issues, it shows up in your body.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah, it's like anything else, right? So if you don't do your cleaning normally, you're going to have masses of stuff that you have to do a major cleaning. It's the same with your body. It's the same as you were saying. If you don't exercise or eat properly, then you're not going to just, one day I'll retire and I'll go work out or exercise. That's not how it works.
Right. And any unresolved emotional pain will always work its way into physical manifestation.
Right.
I've experienced that, and I know you have as well.
So just to be clear, that you're not saying that one shouldn't reach out for help, or are you saying that this work can be done alone, difficult as it is? I mean, it's a solo journey in that way, but to the extent you
should absolutely get help.
Yeah. So I just want to be clear.
But it is an inward journey.
Yes. Yeah. So the other person is not going to do the inward journey for you, but they can guide you through making sure that you're
all of these things, whether it's therapy, hypnosis,
coaching,
working with a coach or counselor. It's always, you're always working with someone who can guide you and who can, mirror back for you, show you what you can't see. Like you talked about your nose, it's on top of your face, in the middle of your face, but you can't see it right now.
That's right. Exactly.
Because we can't see ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's why having a support a system of support like that when you decide to do this, take the inward journey, is so important. It's essential, I think.
Absolutely. Important issue, as we've been saying. For me this year, as I was saying, as I was doing some of this work, it's been so gut-wrenching at times to face some of my old traumas. And, for me, I blamed, my dad most of my life inside me. So it ate away at me. And it took literally decades to overcome that. And I had the good fortune to be able to finally resolve a lot of things with him before he passed away. So similar to that, going back to how some of my kids have probably seen me, I think they've seen me change over the years. And this year was even more conscious for me to be aware. I do some breath work before I have to have an encounter with them. It's been just pretty interesting. But I think, as you were saying, it's really an inward responsibility. Then when you start getting aware of how you come across and how you might be feeling, and that perhaps, this particular situation gets out of hand because, I'm reflecting that. And so when you become more aware, then you can actually take the responsibility for coming across as your best self and your highest self in any interaction. It's not easy, for sure, but you become more aware and you become more conscious. And, you've coached me through some of these things, and, we've all had different coaches for different things. And it's a journey.
For sure. I think this year I heard and said the words emotional trigger more than I ever have in the past, because it is the kind of year where it's so easy to feel triggered by something or someone. And for me, that was probably the inspiration to do the shadow work, because I didn't want to keep succumbing to the triggers. I was personally getting tired of hearing myself getting triggered by the same things. So it was the push that I needed to finally look into it and do it and figure out, how to get beyond those triggers, because I want to be in joy, at peace, and steady. Right? As much as possible. Anyway, there's enough going on to unsteady us, but at least our own stuff shouldn't be unsteadying us.
Exactly. Oh my God, this subject we can probably go on for hours and hours. Can we not? Jesus.
On and on.
Yeah. Is there something you want to recommend to our listeners, to maybe a book or something that might be interesting?
There is a book that I picked up in probably around March, when this all first began, or April, called Gold Mining the Shadows by Pixie Lighthorse. It's just a really, really great book to help you with some prompts to think about, to journal on, to reflect. And so I think begin there. And what about you? Do you have a tip?
My tip would be that really this is so important. You don't want to have, months, years go by and you haven't dealt with some of these things for your life. Don't let this become a drain for your future. So I would say better to take charge of this, this blind spot, dealing with your blind spots and dealing with your shadows. We all walk around with things that, we'll work it out, but we're all in our heads a lot. And as you were saying, it's about, until you really connect with your heart, it's very difficult to really face it headlong. I mean, you need to face your fears and your anxieties, but, living in the same doesn't serve you. Living in the same way every day.
So what's the tip?
Tip is reach out, get some help. In whatever form, journaling and meditation might be a good start, or reading this book might be a start. But truly, go to an expert who knows how to help you with this, and have dealt with it themselves.
Yes, and we'll have some resources for you to check out below. In the meantime, we hope that you found inspiration in this episode to have you perhaps just begin to explore what that inward journey might be for you and why you need to do it and why you ought to do it. And it's I think a privilege to be able to live during a time that we have the ability and the capacity to be able to do this type of work. It's a privilege because unlike our ancestors, we are not in survival mode, and we do have the time and the space to be able to do this. So I consider it an honor to be alive today, to be able to do some of this work, which, we'll talk about it in another episode, but it's very healing, not just for you, but it's healing that touches generations that came before you and generations that will come after.
Because ultimately, our children are our future, and if we can either stem the tide or change the tide, or at least do the best we can, because if we're more aware and more interconnected, then, and our podcasts are about interconnectedness too. So it is about unity consciousness. So if that's our mission, then I think it feels also responsible for us to do something about it.
Exactly.
So please download and subscribe to this podcast and share this with friends and anyone else who you think might resonate with what we just talked about.
And you can also find us on YouTube in the Live Masterminds channel. Subscribe that too. Share with whoever you feel would benefit.
Well, very good. So until next time, here's Triccia and Raju saying goodbye to you.
Take care. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if so, make sure to subscribe, download, and share it with your sphere of influence.
We bring a variety of topics to you, and it's like a masterclass for those topics, and it's all free.
So take a screenshot, share it on your social media, and add the hashtag #BoldConsciousConnections so that we can find you, see you, maybe say hello.
And if you want to deep dive into some of the topics that we bring to you, find us at www.livemasterminds.com and get to know us.
Take care.